Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ad Project Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe Scheller from Advertisers, and today I am joined by Sean Morgan, who's an account manager on our team. Sean, it is awesome to have you on the podcast, man.
Appreciate it. It's been 2 years in the making.
Yeah. So Sean and I, we've been having a lot of discussions around the office about AI, all the new tools that are coming out, ChatGPT, all that good stuff. So I wanted to have Sean come on the podcast and, I don't know, just kind of open up the conversations that we're having around the office. But before we do that, I mean, so for people who don't know you, Sean, kind of give us a quick background, what you did before at Advance, how you got involved with us, what you're doing now.
Yeah. So I'm sure it'll become apparent throughout the rest of the podcast, but I'm not a native Minnesotan. I'm originally from Ireland, from Belfast, but moved over here for college in 2012 on a soccer scholarship, and still heavily involved in that on the coaching side of things now. And went to school for communications and marketing, and worked for a number of different advertising agencies, always on the digital side of things, at 3 or 4 different agencies in Duluth. And then eventually made my way to Advertisers when Matt reached out, and I thought it was a spam message, and I'm glad I responded to the one and only spam message I think I've ever responded to.
That's awesome. We must have done good enough where we got your attention enough to respond. Yeah. So, yeah, Sean does a ton of stuff in soccer in the area. We call him coach around the office. Yep, busy right now. So you're starting soccer practice right now, right?
Yeah, we have spring season for the college, and then I've just finished recruiting for our summer team, so it's kind of all systems go here in the next 2 months.
Yeah, and so for those who don't know, I mean, we're up in Duluth, Minnesota, and so they literally had to snow blow the soccer field.
Yeah, it's almost like a mini stadium with just snowbanks surrounding the field. So people will be sitting up there watching practice and watching games and stuff. It's quite funny.
Yep. So it's life in northern Minnesota when you have to snow blow the soccer field to get going for spring soccer. Yeah. So Sean, there's been so many different changes just over the last couple of weeks. It's been kind of wild. At the office, we've gotten into ChatGPT quite a bit, trying to figure out different use cases, just exploring the product. But even recently, Bing's got its new chatbot, Bard's got its new chatbot. Where do you see things going overall? There's been so many use cases. Maybe let's just start on the search side, because it's really been focused on Bing and Google. So Google with Google Bards. Now, I'm trying to release and catch up with ChatGPT. So where do you see things going? How does this impact how you operate on a day-to-day basis right now?
Yeah. I think ultimately it comes down to whether or not some of the new technology is going to end up disrupting the market or mimicking the market in a sense. Google, Microsoft, Bing, they've been around for a long time, have been main players in the search space. But with new technologies like ChatGPT coming into play, how much of our search behavior has to change, or how those systems are integrated into everyday search. Sure. In order to change our behaviors. But in terms of the use cases currently, I think it's been, it's come on leaps and bounds in the last 2-3 months since it's become more mainstream, and people are actually digging into it now and finding the best ways to use it and utilize it. And I can only imagine it getting stronger and stronger in a really short space of time as people, become better at writing prompts and slowly but surely change, their search behavior in how they're given information in a query in order to get an output.
Yep. Yeah. It's a couple interesting pieces. And so for those who aren't familiar, ChatGPT or Bard, there are these new AI neural network language models that have been developed. And what's been really cool since ChatGPT 3.5 or 3 when they released it is that the context you're able to get and the quality of responses is pretty mind-blowing. Now with ChatGPT 4, even from like a factual standpoint, it seems to have gotten quite a bit better. I mean, personally for me, initially when I was exposed to the product, I kind of approached it like a search engine. Mm-hmm. And immediately found like some of the issues with the current product where I would do like a search for a news event or something. And it's like, okay, I haven't been trained on data past September of 2021. So you had to approach it differently. So there's definitely a learning curve in the prompts. Like kind of walk through like how you've approached prompt writing, or when people are going into these products, how should they look at it between like how you'd use a search engine versus like a ChatGPT?
Yeah, I think the main piece that I've noticed a shift in just how you're searching is it's a lot more conversational with ChatGPT or Bard or any other service platform that you're using. Whereas you would maybe ask a question like, best places to vacation 2023 to Google, and it's giving you a list of different references that you can pick and choose and do more research on.
Sure.
With ChatGPT, you can approach the prompt in a more conversational way where I think you have to do that in essence to get what you want out of it, and not treat it so much like a general Google search engine or Bing, that you have to write the prompt in a certain way and give it more information and context in order to get a well-rounded answer back. But the well-rounded answer back allows you to not have to dive into multiple articles to pull information together yourself.
Sure. So I think like best places to vacation, where you could type that in on Google before, and then you could kind of go through the list and see like, oh, okay, yep, I'm looking for a tropical vacation versus like hiking in the mountains.
Yep.
Then you could pick it from the list. And I think that was one big thing for me too, is just that extra context you need to provide from the start. But then with that context, how solid the answer can be.
Yeah.
And so that's one piece that I initially missed. It's like, okay, I'm approaching this just like a general search. And then the results, it's like, okay, they're okay.
Yeah.
But now if I provide that extra context, so best places to vacation with kids, needs to be warm with a beach. We love long sandy beaches, like, something like that. You can get such a better response from it, and you don't have to go through and search through all these different websites to find the best ones. It'll give you that context. And then I think another cool thing with it is now if it's off and they're giving me sandy beaches that are, I don't know, continents away. Yeah. Maybe I say, okay, I don't want to fly that far with kids. Then it can narrow it back down again. And so I think that's what's really cool is like the conversational pieces that you can take with it to really get to those final results. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, even another example we had touched on before this morning, it was, you have to understand that it's not, a magical prediction machine that's just going to give you the right answer to everything. It depends on what you asked it and understanding the limitations of what it can answer, especially with ChatGPT. Like, the example that I used last night when I was just playing around with the tool, who's going to win the Masters in 2023? Like, it's not biased towards giving you an answer, a straight up answer. It's not trained that way. Sure. You have to provide more context to the question that you're asking. So I ultimately changed the question to, without bias, look back historically at, previous tournament winners and their current form and who will finish in the top 5. Give your best prediction of who will finish in the top 5 or 10 of the leaderboard. And it's able to look back and pull information essentially, and then give you a well-rounded answer on what it feels would be who would end up finishing in the top 5 or 10. Sure. And you're not going to get that with just asking it, maybe what seems like a simple question, but without understanding the limitations and how it factors in bias and the answer that it's ultimately going to give you. Yeah. And it's wild when you look at it with that context too, Because you just think of jobs right now that require analysis of huge amounts of data and really summarizing that. So like, for instance, like financial analysts, as they're going through and I'm pulling all the different K1 reports for different companies I'm studying.
Yep.
Like, now you've got this great tool that can go through it and digest that information so quickly and be able to spit out these key takeaways. Or like, you know, being a paralegal, going through and trying to find all these different related cases and everything. Like, the information that you could pull together just with a single prompt when prompted right, it's pretty amazing. And so I think we're just seeing the initial cases where, I mean, this could definitely have an impact, one, on productivity, but also the labor market in general, too.
Yeah.
Because essentially those jobs that are pulling in a bunch of facts, it's going to be tough because you got these tools that can do it in a split second and digest more information than we could ever digest.
Yeah. Yeah, like trying to scrub through a data set even and look for patterns and trends as a human, you know, it's somewhat time consuming. I mean, we have, you know, there's different formulas that you can use in Excel and so on and so forth to kind of narrow things down for you and help you.
Sure.
But plugging data into a platform that is able to process that amount of information in seconds essentially and is very good at pattern matching and gives you an output that is digestible and understandable, like I think it's going to change the landscape completely. Yeah,
another way that we're utilizing it here and even at home, like I'm a nerd and I love playing around. I have a little home server at home that does like home automation stuff and everything, but I was working on that last night, and instead of using Google and usually going to like Stack Overflow articles, I was just typing into ChatGPT, like, hey, how do I do this? And it would spit me out the exact syntax on how to do it. And so like from a code writing perspective too, really takes out a lot of those more like not meaningless, but the smaller tasks.
Yeah.
And what's cool is once you get past that, now you can really think through the higher level thinking of like, what am I truly trying to do with this software or with this data? And instead of spending all the time on trying to gather the information together or figure out the syntax to get what you want, it can give you that. So now we can spend so much more time on higher level thinking. Like in terms of advertising for us, it's now, you know, we've had our software to help us out with this quite a bit. Like we don't want to spend time constantly getting the trends or the data. We want to have that at our fingertips. So then what we can do is turn that into strategy.
Yeah.
And what is really exciting to me is like, say if I was able to connect up ChatGPT with our database schema, and then we could open up to the whole team, like, hey, if there's a general trend, you don't have to know how to write SQL. You can just type it in and have it pull it out. And like, you know, with Copilot coming out for Office, Microsoft Office, like, which will be rolling out, it's going to be based off of the ChatGPT. It's OpenAI's system that's going to be coming into Office. Looks like there's so many cool things that we can do, and we're just scratching the surface. So there's some scary pieces, but there's also some like really exciting pieces with this too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it seems like everything is so advanced and has become so advanced in the last 6 months, but we're like still only scratching the surface.
Yeah.
You know, this is the equivalent of getting, you know, dial-up internet for the first time in your house 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, I think in 15 years, I think the trajectory of the use of this technology is going to, like, you know, it took 30 years to get to where we are essentially from the internet becoming prominent in your home and in workplaces. But with the computing power that these systems have, like the leaps that it's going to make in short periods of time are going to be exponential.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one key piece that we're really keeping an eye on is like web search in general. So utilizing like Google's Bard, which is kind of the competitor of ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT, like we're definitely on the leading edge for trying to utilize this in like the general population. This is going to take quite a while to, I mean, there's some major learning curves and some major habits to change. And so, you know, for those who are predicting that this is going to just crush like general web search overnight, like It's going to take years and years and years for the general population to change their web browsing habits. But at the same time, like, personally, now that I've built up those new habits already, like, I would have a hard time going back, and we're just at the, the initial stages. I guess one question I have, like, Google, most of their monetization is from search.
Yeah.
Utilizing Bard, I just see that it feels like there's going to be a harder time to try to inject ads into that because it's conversational. It kind of feels like Alexa when, they've been trying to monetize Alexa, and it's been difficult because throwing ads into the audio conversation just doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
So what's your perspective on like web search, or can they tie in ads? How would they tie in ads? Like, how do you see that going?
I think that's the $1 million question at the minute, as far as how will it be monetized?
Sure.
I mean, I think it's the use of ChatGPT compared to Google search and what it's being utilized for at this time. It's almost like it's two very different types of searches that are going on, right?
Sure.
It's more conversational and simply looking for answers, versus Google is still leading you down the way of giving you resources that you can then utilize, whether you're looking for, a plumber for the house or, directions to XYZ.
Yeah.
But putting ads in its current form, to an extent, I think the format of like ChatGPT would probably have to change in some way, shape or form. I know, given that it's subscription based now, is probably just the beginning. But injecting ads into something that wouldn't feel natural to put, any display ads in that current format that looks like a teleprompter.
Sure. Sure.
Is it in the future, would it be more, you're essentially paying for links to be placed? How much of that disrupts essentially what it is, because the answers and the information that it's going to give you back, is there ever a guarantee that your link is going to be shown?
Sure.
How would that work essentially? I mean, one thing that I was thinking about and spitballing with my wife last night when we were having conversations about AI was does it become more integrated in the internet and how things currently are? So, ChatGPT or Bard or other platforms like that, are they going to be integrated just into websites currently? So almost like a plugin or a pop-up, like chatbots are used already.
Sure.
This is just on steroids.
Yeah.
And would it always stay subscription based? And in between searches, there's a period of time where you basically have to sit and view an ad before you get the answer.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of see the path forward right now in terms of how it will be utilized, because it is so question answer based. How does the model have to change in order to fit what our behaviors currently are?
Yeah.
Or how will it have to change as our behaviors change, reacting to the use of it?
Yeah. I don't know. It's good questions. Like, so for Bing, I'm playing around with their chatbot. So it's based off of OpenAI, ChatGPT's technology. They've done a good job on also including some links. And so if you ask it more general web search questions, they will show links it'll answer the question, but it'll provide links on websites where you can go maybe for some more like independent context.
Yeah.
And like what we were talking about before, it kind of reminds me of Google right now, where you type in a web search and many times it'll just answer your question right at the top. You don't even have to go to the website.
Yeah.
And so there's the link aspects that definitely tie into it. And I think that Bing's really trying to bridge that gap between strictly web search and strictly ChatGPT. What gets interesting though is like the way these models are built, they're always trying to find the most probable or the best output. And so to integrate ads, I feel like you would have to almost influence that a bit, like tie an advertisement into this question, which inherently could take down the probability of a good answer.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like people are going to be cool with that. And so maybe it's like you provide the answer, but then there's links that you can explore more.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on like product search? So, general, okay, so we're going up to the Boundary Waters. For people who aren't familiar, it's this big wilderness up in northern Minnesota. My whole family, we're taking a canoe in. You can't have motors or anything like that. And so we're looking for a bigger tent now that we've got 5 of us. And so I'm searching for a 6-person tent. Like, can I do that now with these chatbots? Like, how does that look? How do you see the future of like product search?
Yeah, I think it changes vastly. I think it ultimately cuts down on the amount of research that people have to do to find the product that they want to purchase. Especially on Amazon, you might, if you're truly in consideration for a tent,
sure,
you're going to look at maybe 4, 5, 6 different tents. You're going to read the reviews. You're going to determine which one is the best fit for 5 people based on other people's experiences, price points, so on and so forth. And that in itself is time consuming. You have to go into each PDP. You got to read the reviews, so on and so forth.
Sure.
With chatbots, you can essentially prompt it by telling it what you want. I want a tent that fits 5 people, that's waterproof, that is, resistant against 40-mile-per-hour winds. Not that you would ever be camping in 40-mile-per-hour winds.
I don't know. We could be. Hope we don't get the summer storm coming through.
But giving it as many prompts as you can to really narrow down what you're looking for, and then the chatbot essentially scraping the top 10 best products based with reviews, with price point, pros and cons, and having it packaged right in front of you with a link then that takes you to either Amazon or another relevant website that the product is being sold on.
Sure.
And then all you have to do is click the link and purchase.
Yeah.
It's all packaged up right away for you. I think it drastically cuts down on the amount of time. But then, what does that do from an advertising perspective? Because,
sure,
it's picking the best results based on the prompts that you give it.
Yeah.
So are you going to be able to influence people's purchase behavior by showing ads? It doesn't really fit the way the model in general of what you're trying to do. You're trying to find the best product that suits your needs, and then you're trying to crowbar in some ads for people to buy a product that might be pretty relevant but might not be exactly what you're looking for. So it's definitely interesting to try and think about like how advertising fits into that. I wonder
if you could put like, all right, so now I start to treat ChatGPT like a search engine, and then maybe it's not specific keywords, but it's like, all right, if somebody asks about a 6-person tent or a tent that would hold about, capacity of, maybe you had to specify it in terms of like prompts and everything too.
Yeah.
And what you're trying to target. So maybe it's not specific keyword targeting, but if somebody is asking about this product, this could be a good fit or something like that. And then you pay for the advertisements, and then maybe they show up as like little sponsored ads right below. Yeah. I don't know, just to provide another link.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. So what do you think too? Like, all right, so and we did this internally when we were sitting down as a team, and remember Josh, he wanted a cool looking handheld vacuum. and so we were going through and doing examples with ChatGPT for the team and kind of how you write up prompts and stuff like that. So we looked up the products and it came out with the list, and we looked at the list and we had to prompt it a couple times because the vacuum didn't look cool enough, if I remember right, for Josh. And then we found the one that looked really cool. But it gave us links back to Amazon and everything. Like you couldn't click on them, if I remember right, but you had to copy them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, again, this is in the early stages. I wonder what that looks like in terms of product search and how this could potentially impact a retailer like Amazon too, because I'm assuming they're not going to want to open up all their reviews and everything for something like ChatGPT. At the same time, if many people start changing their buying habits, going more towards these bots because you can add so much more context to it, that could inherently pull people away too. I don't know. What's your take on that?
I think it's if you don't adapt and change, it's a slippery slope.
Sure.
I think one of the examples that I was reading about yesterday was, essentially if it's going to show links to Amazon, to a third party website, whatever it may be, are those links essentially going to have to be paid for in some way, shape, or form?
Sure.
To capture that traffic? Are people, because you're opening up the door, like, is it going to return 10 links back to 10 different Amazon products? Probably not.
Sure.
Are 2 of those links going to be Amazon, and the other 8 going to be third party, or a link to eBay or whatever else? Are those going to have to be paid links to capture that traffic? Because if they're not, you almost run the risk of ChatGPT becoming so mainstream, or other AI platforms becoming so mainstream, that you're essentially, web traffic just is on the absolute decline.
Yeah.
Because you're not browsing and searching multiple websites anymore.
Yeah.
You're just browsing ChatGPT.
It's been another question. We put out a ton of content, as you can go to ChatGPT and get these answers. And essentially what they're doing is they're scraping all the content that's out there, including ours,
Yep.
and utilizing that to find the best answer. And so our content is just kind of fueling these AI bots
Yep.
to answer the questions. Well, if I get the perfect question from the start, why would I browse around and read different articles and everything? And so we've had the question internally too, like, how does this kind of change? Like, does this change our content strategy? How does this change our content strategy? Like, in the future, can we see web traffic to specific websites going down quite a bit? And I could see that actually being the case if I can get the answer.
Yeah.
Just like with Google right now, when it provides me the answer for a search, it's a lot less clicks that I have to do. I don't have to go out to as many websites. Now, if I can get even better answers to those deeper questions that I've got, why would I click around?
Yeah. Yeah, I think web traffic will definitely decline. But I think my take on the content piece, I guess, would be it becomes more valuable.
Sure.
Because, it becomes more valuable in a sense that, AI currently and chatbots currently, how you kind of miss that originality and kind of opinion that you would get in human writing, right?
Because it just squishes all the different thoughts together.
Yeah. So, I think people still would prefer to read something that's written by a human versus generated by AI.
Sure.
But for right now, I think for the most part, you can tell the difference between two different, the way it writes and the outputs that it gives.
Sure.
You can tell that it's generated by AI for the most part.
Yeah.
Over the next 6 months to a year, as it becomes more intuitive.
And it's funny that that's the time frame we're talking about. It's not like the next 10 years.
Yeah.
It's like the next 6 months to a year.
Yeah. How much does that change and it become blended where you can't tell the difference?
Yeah.
And you could be reading something on a website that is AI generated and simply not even know it.
Yep.
But then, I'd also like to think that, Google's been doing it for quite a few years now and using AI to filter out spam and different types of content that are on the internet essentially that have been like plagiarized and so on and so forth.
Sure.
Does it get to a point where, there's also AI and algorithms that can determine what is AI generated and what is not? Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. It gets pretty wild. Like I think in the very short term, if not now, there's many pieces where I have a hard time telling if it was generated by AI or not. And like you're saying, in the near future, I think it's going to be so much harder. And so I think the value of independent opinions is going to actually increase.
Yep.
So you can get, ChatGPT is going to provide this nice general context and give you both sides of the story. And it does a good job of balancing out a lot of different pieces. And there's still items that definitely need to be fact checked. So it makes up stuff. It's getting better and it'll continue to get better. But then I think those individual opinions are going to mean so much more because it's going to kind of give you the average out of all the context that's out there. And so, I mean, speaking to that too, so if we tie it back to like selling e-commerce products, it feels like, so I would just assume, and I know, I mean, because Amazon's been working on this for quite a while. If you talk to Alexa and you ask it for something, to purchase something, it's going to find you like the best recommendation for it.
Yeah.
You know, and so they've already been developing this software. I'm sure this is just going to tune up exactly what they're doing too. So I could see in the future Amazon going to a place where it's like in the search bar, I type in more like chatbot, like describe what I'm looking for, and it helps me find it.
Yeah.
I see it recommending a lot more of the top products and kind of weeding out a lot of those lower ones. Maybe it's better at finding the context and the differences, and maybe some of the new releases do get hit more. I don't know. Like, what's your take? Like, does it? If Amazon comes out with its own chatbot where you can provide context, does that help the established players more than the new players coming in, or is it vice versa?
I'd like to think it would help the established players more.
Sure.
You know, given that, you know, they're pretty focused on providing the best customer experience possible, why would, you know, any chatbot or anything that's AI related, it's not going to show products that are pretty far down the totem pole in terms of reviews, recommendations.
Sure.
You know, it
kind of goes back to the point that you were just talking about, where it's like it's squishing together all the information and kind of taking the average or the most probable, and the most probable is probably going to be some of these established players.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, the biggest one, just even in terms of search on Google and Amazon, when you type into the search bar, you get suggested it's essentially going to finish your sentence, right? Does that become a lot more robust in terms of, instead of it just being a general search bar, you're saying it's integrated more with chatbot technology,
sure,
and it's providing a lot more context. But do you get so far down the line where, you know, it's almost tailored to you as a person, because of your usage of it across multiple platforms across the internet and different profiles that it's linked to?
Sure.
You know, you have multiple, you know, I use the same Gmail profile anytime I'm on Google.
Yeah.
So it's going to see all my prior history and searches and, you know, begin to amalgamate all that information to basically predict what I'm searching for.
Yeah.
And write a prompt that's going to give me exactly what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's another good case that I haven't even really thought about. But yeah, it could definitely fine tune it to you.
Yeah.
You know, and so I can look at my purchase history from Amazon. All right. Yep. He's into this. He returned these items. So definitely wasn't into that as much. Incorporate that in too. Get a good perspective on probably what I'm going to be interested in, and fine tune. It kind of provides some of those initial prompts or context that you have to provide right now.
Yeah.
It could take previous history and be like, oh, okay. Yeah, Joe fits this profile, and so we'll just kind of use that as the initial prompt when he's doing a search.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how much it becomes based in understanding and filtering through keywords within the prompt, and how much it's going to be based on behaviors and data that has been generated from, you know, your search history.
Yeah,
you know, if you even back to the products piece. Will it help bigger players in the space or smaller players in the space? Maybe it also factors in, you know, the description and product title of a product and those keywords being inputted into a prompt. You know, if I'm looking for something that's, you know, a tent that's 100% waterproof guaranteed,
sure,
and that's within the prompt, but there's only a certain number of products that, you know, have that keyword string in their product title or, you know, in their descriptions on Amazon. Is that product going to take precedence over something that isn't 100% guaranteed waterproof?
Yeah.
But has 50,000 reviews compared to the product that has 3,000?
Sure.
You know, it's pretty interesting how it could go, I guess.
Yeah.
And in terms of the customer experience, is it going to be more behavior based or more keyword oriented?
Yeah. And then it could even go through like all the reviews and everything and determine like, have people been complaining that it's not waterproof?
Waterproof, yeah.
Yeah. And so you can even like fact check what's the key attributes for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and based off of the reviews, like it already comes up, with key things that pop up commonly in the reviews.
Yep.
But now you could use that and be like, okay, they say it's waterproof, but all these people complain about water. Yeah, very interesting. So, Sean, we're going to have you come back on the podcast. You okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like even this topic, it's unbelievable how like far down the rabbit hole you can really go.
Yeah.
Like I feel like people are just kind of starting to realize now that, hey, ChatGPT is available and AI is coming to the forefront.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time.
Sure.
It's just never been widely used, I guess,
it's hitting that tipping point where it's becoming like truly useful versus kind of a cool novelty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess just to rehash some key points. So web search, it's going to be really interesting to see how this evolves.
Yeah.
And trying to get advertising into web search as more and more people go to ChatGPT or Bard or Bing Chat now. It's going to be really interesting how that all works. Mm-hmm. Web traffic over time can definitely see that going down if there's more and more answers that are easily available right at your fingertips. Individual opinions and individual voices feel like that's going to increase in value.
Yep.
Just because you're going to use these chatbots kind of as that nice data finding option. But then if I want to hear the outliers on each side, I can ask ChatGPT. But again, that's going to be a accumulation of different viewpoints. So I feel like those individual perspectives are going to mean a lot more. And then in terms of like product search and everything too, it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Like one from the Amazon side, how many people start doing product searches? Like people obviously search for products right now on Google. How many move to these chatbots? Does Amazon roll out their own where you can provide more context? And if so, how does that work? How does that look? Can impact the sponsored side. If web traffic's going down, now display advertising can definitely impact that too.
Yeah.
And then in terms of product positioning and everything too, as you're launching it, like I think we came to the conclusion that right now, as we see it, the established players are going to be kind of set ahead because these chatbots usually provide just a couple answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so those who are really leading right now, it could give them even more of a moat.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess any other key takeaways that I missed there?
No, I think we kind of covered the gamut. There's so much. Like you feel like you get into these conversations and they can just keep going and going and going about different
Sean
use
and
cases.
I was standing by his desk, and all of a sudden it was like 45 minutes later, and it's like I don't even know how we got here, but we did, and this all seems probable.
Yeah. No, I think if it's becoming more and more prevalent, and folks are starting to realize how it can be used and the best use cases for it.
Yeah.
But the internet is essentially it's all based on ad revenue.
Sure.
And the amount of web traffic generated, and ads being shown, and it's big vicious circle.
Yeah.
Like if these platforms come in and disrupt the market in general, and web traffic does go down, and what does that mean for the future of advertising? It's going to have to be integrated in some way, shape, or form.
Sure.
To either that, or you're looking at a completely new internet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So interesting. Yeah. Well, we'll wrap it up there. We could talk about this for hours, but Sean, we'll have to have you back on the podcast, so we'll dive deeper into some of these other topics too.
Definitely.
It's been fun.
Appreciate it, Joe.
Yeah. And for all those who are listening, if you're interested in more of these topics, we're going to be posting about it quite a bit more coming up. So make sure you're following Advance or me. LinkedIn is a great spot to go. We're also on Facebook or other social platforms too. But check that out. World's changing really quick. And we're having fun exploring what this looks like, and then also trying to adapt and change just like everybody else. It's interesting. It's fun. A little scary, but good. Yeah, lots of things to change, but like everything, we feel like if we can be at the forefront of it, a ton of opportunity too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, for everyone out there who's listening, appreciate you listening to this episode of the Ad Project Podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.